David Nadolski, welcome and thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm flattered that you asked me to join you today. I'm happy to be here.
Great. I'm not entirely sure where we should start with this story. I've got a very interesting journey behind you. You've dedicated 21 years to investigating various cases, including the retrieval of a valuable and historically important book collection belonging to John Quincy Adams. If I may say so, correct me if I'm wrong, one case in particular shines above the rest, the remarkable tale of the Loomis Fargo vault sting. Throughout your career, you had an informant known as Tony Romano, or as you called him in your book, the Bird Dog. He played a crucial role in assisting you to solve these cases. And you've written all these stories in a book that you've published, The Con and the FBI Agent, which tells the story, which was one of the biggest armed robberies of the 20th century. And surprisingly, I recently discovered you also were part of a Netflix series called This is a Robbery. And yeah, it's really great to have you here today. Perhaps we can start with your story. Tell me more about yourself.
Sure. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And that's where I grew up. My dad was a police officer in the city of Detroit, and I probably developed my interest in law enforcement from him. But at an early age, I knew I wanted to get into law enforcement eventually. I went to a Catholic grade school. I was not a stellar student by any means. And then I went to a Catholic high school and flunked out when I failed French and math. So I ended up in a public school, which is where I should have started out, I think. And I did quite well there. But after high school, the Vietnam War was on, and my older brother was serving in the Marines. He was a Marine Corps officer, and he was in Vietnam and saw quite a bit of combat. And then when he got home, I heard all the stories, and I thought instead of going on to college after high school, I decided I wanted to go into the military myself. So I volunteered to go into the Army. I was 17 at the time, and but I was only going to go in for 2 years, and then I would have access to the GI Bill for veterans, and which included compensation for college expenses and tuition. And so I knew that would be a good thing. But I did volunteer for the Army, and I myself went to Vietnam as well. And I spent 13 months over there, and then came home and was discharged from the Army. And at that point, I started to look towards my eventual career in law enforcement. So I became a police officer in the city of Sterling Heights, Michigan, which is where I was living at the time. And I also married my wife, Linda, who I met when I was working part-time at Sears, which is a department store here in Michigan. Well, I'm not here in Michigan now. I'm in Massachusetts, but at the time I was in Michigan. And we married, and I started my career as a police officer and eventually became a detective. And the job I found it to be very interesting. I mean, I loved the um, variety of work and cases that would come my way, and it really kept me interested and happy to go to work and to work on these cases, these projects. When I was in uniform, I was every day was a different day. You were solving problems and helping people, and um, hopefully tracking down criminals often. And this really interested me. So I was a police officer for 6 years, but then I got the opportunity to, and I also, by the way, went to college on the GI Bill, as I mentioned, and I did that part time, but eventually earned my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And with that in my pocket, and with professional law enforcement experience under my belt, I was um, eligible to apply for a position with the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The Federal Bureau, for people who may not be that familiar with it, is a federal um, law enforcement organization. It enforces the federal versus state criminal laws. And so, if an FBI agent essentially has authority to investigate throughout the entire United States. And I was selected, and I did go to the FBI Academy and passed through that. And my first assignment was back home in Detroit, where I spent 6 months. After that, I was transferred to Atlanta, Georgia, where I investigated foreign counterintelligence matters and civil rights violations. Foreign counterintelligence matters are a unique FBI responsibility. And essentially, what it is you're investigating and tracking the spies that are have been identified as being in our country. And I was doing that. So I was investigating cases against Russian foreign counterintelligence who were in our country working. So that's essentially, and it's not an easy job. It's really a tedious, long-term process building a case against the foreign counterintelligence agents of other countries because they're pretty darn smart and hard to catch. But I was transferred after 2 years in Atlanta to the FBI office in New York City, where the foreign counterintelligence program was huge. So I investigated those cases for 6 years. Um, I never did catch a spy, but that's not unusual. Uh, and I was offered a promotion or a transfer to the Boston division. And my wife and I were anxious to go to Boston because we had vacationed here and liked the Boston area. And so I accepted that opportunity to transfer to the Boston office. And while there, that's when I started investigating bank robberies and major thefts. Um, and eventually led me to the case of the con that I'm covering in my book, The Con and the FBI Agent and Unlikely Alliance, which, as you mentioned, was a plot for a rather vicious gang to take over the Loomis Fargo vault facility in Boston. Loomis Fargo is an armored car company here, and they kept all their cash that they were transporting from bank to bank in a large vault area, which was secure, but it had one flaw in that if somebody on the inside, in other words, a legitimate employee of Loomis Fargo, was so inclined, they could participate and initiate the takeover of the vault facility where their money is kept. And in my case, involving my informant Anthony Romano, I was able to insert him in this group called the Merlino Gang. And the reason he was able to join this gang is he knew Carmelo Merlino, the leader of the gang. They had been acquaintances almost all of Anthony Romano's life, and they had both done time together in prison for drug dealing and other other crimes. And Anthony Romano was out of prison. Carmelo Merlino was out of prison and working at a garage in Dorchester, Massachusetts, which is a section of Boston. And Tony was a very good mechanic, and so he was able to hire on with Carmelo Merlino. And shortly after hiring on with Carmelo Merlino approached him with the idea of robbing the Loomis Fargo vault facility, which got me going, and which Anthony told me about. And after that, we went. I had him and opened up as an informant, which means he would listen to the conversations and report back to me all the planning that's going on for this particular crime.
Very interesting. I mean, normally I would ask throughout the interview or at any stage the people I interview to recommend a book, but I must say I've purchased your book. I've read it and it was absolutely fantastic and very hard to put down, where it tells exactly the story you just mentioned. Um, yeah, I wish someone in Hollywood is going to reach out to you and they're going to make a movie out of it, because it's definitely very engaging and it's an incredible story you've experienced. And mm, yeah, just fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And actually, I'm trying to get it before some Hollywood people myself. So I hope, and I really, really am happy that you enjoyed the book. It was my first attempt at writing, and I got to say, I think it's pretty good too. So I agree with you.
First time. You've definitely got experience for it and talent. So you should continue doing it. If you've got more really interesting cases that you could describe, definitely keep going, because there's definitely the audience who loves these kind of books and stories. I must admit, I never read any crime stories, mostly biographies, but this was really hard for me to put down. Absolutely amazing. Great story. It was like watching a movie in my head.
Thank you.
All right, David. So let's move a little bit back in time. And you've tapped a little bit about the early life before you joined the police, went to Vietnam, or became an FBI agent. Tell me more about where you grew up and what kind of childhood you had. And what was it like for you?
As I said earlier, I was in Detroit, and my dad was a police detective. And growing up at that time in Detroit was really great. That was the mid '60s. I was born in 1951, so I started school in when I was 4 years old in kindergarten, and so my whole grade school and high school was in the city of Detroit for the most part, and it was a very friendly city at that time. After that, they had a problem with rioting in 1967. The city became dangerous, unfortunately, and my dad retired right after the riots, and he decided to get out of Detroit altogether, which was happening because of the riots. People were leaving the city in droves, so it was going downhill, and he was going downhill fast. Prior to that, it had been a very pleasant place. I had a lot of friends. It was a safe neighborhood, but that all changed after the riots, and we ended up in a suburban city that was Sterling Heights, where I actually became a police officer later. As far as in general, I really liked Detroit. I had a lot of good friends who I went classmates who were my friends, and my family thrived there. Unfortunately, because of the riots, though, everything changed, and Sterling Heights became a safe refuge. It was located in the suburbs outside of Detroit, but it was a very safe place to live, and had none of the ill effects that were plaguing Detroit after the riots of 1967. Those were so severe. I mean, buildings were being burned down, murders were taking place. Um, it was it was a bad time, and none of that was happening in our new home, where after my dad retired from the department, we moved to. He took a retirement job with General Motors in their security department, and life at that time was good. And that's when the Vietnam thing kicked in, and my brother went to war, um, and I decided I would like to follow him, which I did like I said, at age 17. My father had to sign. He had to give written permission to me to enlist at that young age, but I convinced him, and he did it. And in the end, I think everything turned out swell. I think that was a good decision on my part. It was a lucky decision. I could have been killed in Vietnam, but luckily I wasn't. So that turned out to be a good experience too, because I was awarded a Bronze Star Medal in Vietnam, and that went on my resume going forward, um, and helped me get the police job, which helped me get the job with the FBI, which was a career of a lifetime, in my opinion.
Okay. And would you have ever dreamt of becoming an FBI agent as a child? Because, children have dreams of becoming firefighters, astronauts. Was that something in your mind that did your father and brother in a way influence you as a child? And that's the part or journey you took to become who you were throughout your life?
That's right. Their influence was big on me, and uh, certainly uh, steered me in the direction I went through life.
Okay. I always ask that question. Would you say the time when you were a child or teenager were better than the times children or teenagers experiencing today? And if yes, why?
I don't think so, because I don't think it was better than what kids are experiencing today. I have three daughters, and uh, they're all married now, but when they were teenagers, uh, they had a a great school systems that they were involved in. I was still in the FBI and we were moving around, but um, their schools were great. Their experiences were fantastic. They thrived. They all went to college. They're all professionals now and also mothers. And um, we have some great. I have great sons-in-law. I'm very happy with my entire family. I experienced difficulties in high school in Detroit. There, it quite honestly, I was a crappy student. Number one, number two, I was small uh, and ended up being kind of picked on, and so I found myself involved in fights, um, and that's not good. That's not good for kids. And I was glad that my dad was, you know, cognizant of the fact that the Detroit school system was going downhill, and got me out and into a better situation where I thrived academically and was able to at least uh, you know get involved in the career of my choice, being law enforcement.
Okay. What piece of advice would you give to someone starting out in the career or profession? Maybe someone who potentially would be interested in becoming a federal agent. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, sure. I'm asked this question a lot, and I've spoke to prospective FBI agents. I mean students, and I'm happy to do that. If anybody listening to this podcast wants to talk to me personally about um, being an FBI agent or being a police officer, I'm very happy to do that with you on the phone, over the internet, whatever. And so, I mean, I would consider it an honor if I help somebody make that career choice, because, in my opinion, that type of work is so interesting and was so fulfilling that I miss it now, having retired. But I had to get out. I was getting old, so. But I do want to help other kids, students, college students, high school kids, anybody that's interested has a. If they want to reach out to me, I will most certainly respond back.
Okay. So, what does a person, a retired FBI agent, do these days? I mean, I've read in your books, your wife Linda, you've purchased a lot of homes, you've acquired a lot of experience probably redecorating, purchasing, selling properties. But what are you doing now during your retirement? Is there anything exciting that gives you still the thrill? Apart from kids, maybe grandchildren and anything else, is there something that's exciting, or yeah, something that is maybe associated a little bit with your day job you did in the past?
Well, after I retired, I became a private investigator, and uh, that was fun. And it's a job you have to get a license for, and if you have the background I had, uh, that was the training that somebody might need. But just the same, it was easy to get a license, and so as a private investigator, I help security departments uh, in some of corporate America, and I also help private people who are having issues and needed my services. Particularly in one case, I was contacted by a an attorney who told me, "Hey, Dave, I don't know you, but I found out that about your background, and I've got a client. He's in prison. He is in prison for the rest of his life. His name is Glenn, and Glenn um, was convicted of murder. And I got to tell you, he didn't do it. He he was framed, and uh, he wants to talk to you. He needs to talk to you." And I said, "Well, okay, but I live on Cape Cod, and the prison he was at is 50 miles away." And so I said, I have to charge. Uh, I get $40 an hour for my services. Is that doable? And he said, "Oh yeah, sure." He has a lot of backing from his family, and um, we I'd like you to meet me and Glenn in 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 the prison, which was located in Shirley, Massachusetts, and I want you to hear his story." I said, "Okay, I'll be up there." I made an appointment, and I met with Glenn. I met with his lawyer, and we talked in a conference room. And just to basically, after I spent about 2 or 3 hours there listening to his story, how he ended up in prison, what he was charged with, and um, I must say I came under the I absolutely believed him when he said he was not guilty. When I found out the circumstances surrounding his arrest and how that happened as a result of a bad cop, uh, I said, "Okay, I'll take this case on, and I'm going to interview. I'm going to re-interview everybody that was interviewed originally, and anybody else I can um, find who knows anything about your case, and I want to work towards getting you free." And so I said, "But yeah, I got to charge you, and can you pay?" And he said, "Sure, sure. I got plenty of money. I got relatives that are going to back me up." And I said, "Okay." So that worked out. I started re-interviewing people that were interviewed supposedly originally when the cops the Boston Police Department was charging him with this murder, only to find out that it it was looking bad for the original investigator. He didn't do his job, and um, I was becoming more and more convinced after talking to more and more people that he didn't do the murder he was charged with. Uh, so then he ran out of money, and then I had a decision. What do I do? I don't want to quit on him, so I said, "All right, I'll work for free." So I continued for 3 years interviewing clients, um, people, witnesses to this murder. The murder was of a prostitute, and um, there was one prostitute, a different prostitute, who testified that his name is Glenn Breeze. Glenn picked up the victim, took her to she took him to um, an apartment she had, and then was found dead there, and Glenn was gone. Um, and there were witnesses that put him at the scene, but these witnesses, after I talked to them, I found them highly unreliable. I found a lot of evidence that suggested Glenn wasn't there. And I was pretty happy about the direction this case was going, and I felt confident that I might get him a new trial. There's a group of legal experts here called the Innocence Project. They do these type of investigations along with private investigators like myself for free. And so I aligned myself with the Innocence Project. We formed a team. We went forward with our investigation, but Glenn unfortunately couldn't see the day when he was going to get out because he contracted a severe case of cancer and he died in prison. Um, and that's my biggest regret. I mean, I'm glad I helped him, and I have a whole file on him that's huge. So he's probably my next book, or his story is my next book.
Okay, can't wait for it to come out. Definitely gonna buy it. um, okay, very interesting story. What would you say are some of the most important lessons you've learned over the course of your life, and how have they helped you grow or change as a person?
Well, the biggest lesson is um, always tell the truth, never lie. Um, if you think you're in trouble, uh, the worst thing you can do is lie about it, because then when that's found out, you can't be trusted when you finally do tell the truth. Telling the truth, being honest, uh, is so incredibly important, and it defines you as a person. Once you tell a lie, people suspect, or and rightly so, that maybe they can't trust you or trust what your word or what you're telling them. So I think honesty, self respect uh, are the two most important attributes um, that a person can have.
Okay, I can imagine in your job you had probably many difficult, challenging, or stressful situations. Are there any tips you would give to younger people, perhaps how to cope in difficult times? It could be pretty much anything.
Sure, rely on your support system. Everybody should have a support system of some sort. Um, I had peers, and I had my wife. I had good friends, and when I was down or when I was troubled, I would turn to all of them, any of them, and in and that's helped me to be a better person and to offer anything I can do to help an up and coming student or um, somebody interested in law enforcement. I'm happy to do that and to pass that down. I mean, there's that saying of passing it along, or pay it forward rather, and that's exactly. I believe very much in that. Anything I can put forward, I'm happy to do that. Anything that's helpful to somebody with a problem or somebody with a question, and that's an important thing. You once you've lived your life, you've learned a lot of lessons, and if you keep them bottled up, you're not going to be helping anybody. So um, being being a mentor is I think an extremely valuable way to go.
Okay. And throughout those lessons in your life, have you received a piece of advice that stuck with you? And why would you say it stuck with you?
I think the best advice I got was to be true to myself, um, to strive. Once you've decided on a path, don't quit. Too many people have I've seen fallen by the wayside when things have gotten rough in their particular career. Um, and I say stick with it and work it out. Uh, Rely on your friends, rely on your family. But when you have personal problems, don't bottle anything in. That is that'll lead you down the absolute wrong path. And I can say I've seen people do that and end up taking their own lives when all that was absolutely avoidable. Um, Look to your friends and look to the people who want to listen and help you and take their advice, and don't feel weak about looking for help. That's that's the wrong way of thinking. And um, I of course I don't like to share my secrets going growing up when I think I've done something wrong, but you got to. And even if it's going to confession, in church, that's a helpful thing to get off your chest, to be, to be told that you're still worthy uh, of becoming a good person, and let's put that behind us. So uh, that my advice is don't bottle things up. Basically, I've seen that happen, and it always ends badly. I mean, one of my best friends shot himself in the basement because he was keeping things bottled up, really bottled up. I had no idea he was going through this. So there's people. We're out there. We'll help.
Okay. And in your own words, what would you say is the key to a successful and fulfilling life?
Doing what makes you happy, and there's I guess I mean that's my opinion. I always watch it. I'm always critiquing um, when I see somebody in a job that they hate, and it affects their home life. It affects their um, mental state. It affects the people around them. You've got to find what you're interested in. If it's hard, and you say, well, you say I want to be a doctor. Okay. Um, but it's hard. Sure, it's hard. But do you really, really want to be a doctor? And then take the steps to do that. Start small and get through high school, then get into an incredible college, a good college, and stick to the harder subjects, work on it, uh, and prepare yourself for an eventual career in medicine. And well, two of my daughters are in medicine, and they love it. It's so fulfilling. And I would say, you got to stick to it. Hard is hard, but hard isn't impossible. And when you uh, challenge yourself and you've gotten through it and succeeded, you'll feel so much better for it. Just don't let life get you down. Try, however and whatever it takes, not to let life get you down. That leads down some tragic
Okay.
roads.
And do you think there's something society could do better to support younger people these days?
Um, Probably. I mean, we can always get better. Support systems exist in schools and in religions. And um, personally, I'm not religious right now, or have been for a while. But I do support religious training um, and religious elders are good folks to talk to. Um, but so are other professionals, and um, just making sure that you get the right advice and you act on it.
Okay, so what final advice would you give to younger people? Are there any words of wisdom that you would want to share with the younger people?
Yeah, if you have a dream, follow it. Basically, don't settle. Don't let let's talk careers. Don't let somebody else um, talk you into a career that you're not passionate about to begin with. The money might be good, and that would be the attraction, but unless you're happy in what you do, because you're going to spend 50 years probably working, and that's a long time to be uh, dissatisfied. Problems can be resolved. Weaknesses can be overcome, but you're your own person. You have to be true to yourself. Whoever or whatever you are, you go with it. You be proud of it, and um, you'll experience a much happier life. Don't fake it. Don't try to be something you're not destined to be. Don't fail if you can help it. Just keep going in the direction you want to go and keep working at it. Keep working at it.
That's some good advice there. Okay, thank you, David. So maybe to wrap things up, what's the future holding up for you? Do you have any exciting plans? Are you intending to sign that Hollywood contract for making a movie out of your books? Any more books coming up? Anything like that?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I have a literary agent, and I've got a publishing company that I work with as well, and I have other friends who are in the business of movies. In fact, there's other agents out there who have retired and gone into that business in California, and they've contacted me about the book. So there's possibilities with that particular story, and otherwise, I'm not. I'm fully retired now. I did work in the private sector in a security capacity after I stopped being a private investigator, but that lasted 6 years, and I had enough. And so now my wife and I spend our time down in Florida in the winter. We've got a condo in Punta Gorda, Florida, and we spend our summers back here on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and we're very happy.
Great. David, I really wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak to me today, sharing your stories and wisdom. And I hope we're going to get to talk again in the
Me
future,
too.
perhaps about another book you're going to publish. I will definitely be excited to read that. And yeah, I want to wish you um, a wonderful retirement.
Thank you, Matt. It was a pleasure being on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me.